Hey, quick disclaimer before we get into the video. If you're putting a radio into a 2011 Dodge Nitro, like it's a heat edition with four-wheel drive or something like that, um, keep in mind in this video you will see me at the end when I'm soldering everything together, a clip of me putting a blue and a red wire connecting, and that wasn't correct for the way that I had to put this radio in. I don't have the steering wheel controls or anything fancy. It was just regular radio in there, so I didn't need to get that CPU box. I got a cheap $25 harness off of Amazon, and in that box that it came with, there was a like loose bit of red wire. I had to take that red wire, solder it to the red intake of the radio harness, and then take that down to my cigarette lighter and then terminate it there. The power delivery that you normally get once the car is on doesn't go through the harness like it would in some other cars. Other installs I've done, you just throw it in there. But yeah, so in this case, with this car particularly, if you need it to get that extra 12 volts like power when you turn the car on for that radio to operate, run it through the cigarette lighter and you'll do just fine. But yeah, figured I'd throw that quick disclaimer in here just again, remind everybody this is just for funsies. In the process, hopefully you enjoy the video and thanks. How you doing? Good morning. Good shit. Everybody welcome. I have a radio I need to install today. So I'm going through right now. I'm taking all these wire bits and I'm wire bitting. Again, I am about halfway through this process. This is the bit that goes into the back of the radio, and I've already kind of terminated those or gotten rid of the sleeving on there. And then we were going to take this one, which I thought would come with that already done, but apparently that's I don't know, it's not on this one. So we're going to go ahead and do all these now. I'll just put the camera down. You guys can like watch me do that. And then we're going to solder them together and go throw the radio in the car and see how it all works. Sweet. So basically what we're doing here is we are removing the wire sleeving from the wires. Most of the time when you buy a harness, whether it's a cheap one or an expensive one, they come with the sleeving, still hanging on there, but you can easily pull the tips off it to reveal the wires. This one didn't, so for the most part, I just got these really cheap, like Walmart pliers I've had for a couple years. You pinch the wire in there with the proper gauging in mind, and then you just kind of spin the wire cutters around. You don't want to clip it because then you're going to clip the metal. So by spinning it around, you're just cutting that plastic that's around the wires. Of course, because I don't really have any of like the proper equipment, these are really cheap cutters. My fingers are going to be dead by the end of this process. But yeah, for the most part, we got those sleevings removed and we pull out the soldering iron. I don't have anything to hold these wires in place. I don't have anything that's keeping them from kind of moving. So for the most part, what I do is, because I'm poor and cheap that way, I just kind of let gravity help me out here. I kind of line the wires up the way that they need to be. Again, it's going to be a lot of twisting with these loose wires to make sure that they're all kind of twisted together this way. But yeah, for the most part, it's a pretty simple process. It's very repetitive. Your hands are going to hurt by the end, but that's kind of the whole, gist of what's going on here. Nothing too crazy. One wire, one bit at a time. And yeah, hopefully you have the tools that are probably really recommended for doing something like this. You can get these very cheap little hands that kind of hold your wires in place so that you can really twist them in there. You can really get them connected before you begin to like solder stuff. Moving along here, we're still just soldering along. It does take a good bit of time, but with the proper amount of blood coming from your hands, you will achieve greatness. When it comes to not having those little hands that keep those wires kind of propped for you, you just have to remember that the most important thing is to just really take your time and set your wires so that gravity is not working against you. The last thing you want is, you take your hands off of them while you're twisting and then they just kind of pull apart and it becomes a whole mess. But yeah, so it's all about patience and letting gravity help you. The other thing that I do want to mention here in this part is that, this red wire is going to be like your power delivery. The yellow wire is going to be, your constants, and then your blue wire is going to be your power antenna signal. some cars won't really need that power antenna signal. Some do. It kind of depends on like what kind of car you're using or what kind of antenna you have in there. But yeah, it's for the most part you're just matching up colors. There is going to be one wire per each color. So there's like two greens, there's two blues, there's two whites, and there's two grays. That's going to be your front left, your front right, your back left, your back right speaker sounds. And for the most part, each of these wires are going to have one that's got like a black line going through it. That is your like negative pole. So it going back around, and then the one without the stripe in it is going to be like the power delivery. So power going in. And you do want to make sure that you're matching these up. Rule of thumb here is negative to negative, positive to positive. You really don't want to mess with those. I know that when you're testing speakers with, like, let's say a 9-volt battery, you can do negative to positive, positive to negative, or vice versa. It doesn't matter, and you can still get a consistent, like, test. But when it comes to actually wiring these things up, I would not mismatch those. The stripes go with the stripes. The solids go with the solids. But yeah, keeping that in mind, for the most part, you should be getting pretty well through this process. Luckily, I did pick up this soldering iron from Amazon. It was super cheap. It was like $20, and it has come in clutch for me in so many occasions. But yeah, so we're getting through the soldering, and again, it's all about patience, letting gravity work through it. And now we are getting into the like tape. So because all of these have those little pieces of metal that are exposed, you do not want them touching each other. You don't want them bumping into one another. You don't want them to have any kind of contact. So you want to make sure that you wrap each of those wires individually so that they all have their nice little, Band-Aid basically over the exposed wire. Once you have that Band-Aid over that exposed wire, I'm a very picky person. I like my things to look a very neat and prim and proper way, especially with wire management. And with radio harnesses, it's kind of hard because, how much, no one's going to see it. It's like the back of your PC. No one sees it, and you can put hours of dedication and love into setting these wires up, even going so far as to add really unnecessary zip ties and just get really fun with it, so long as that at the end of the day you think it's pretty. Obviously, don't put too much pressure on these wires, especially where you soldered them. And you really don't want them to be wiggling around, getting all loosey-goosey and breaking apart. So be gentle with it. Take your time. But, if you want to go extra like me, really OD this process, make it as pretty as you want. But yeah, with that being said, for the most part, that's the gist of it. Soldering stuff together is not super difficult. It is tedious depending on what supplies you have with you. But yeah, it's straightforward. And if you do not have like a soldering iron, you're working with crimp tools, keep in mind that's totally fine. It's to each their own preference, right? So yeah, for the most part, that's just kind of my breakdown. The video, gives you guys a good visualization as to what that looks like. Questions, concerns, whatever, toss those in the comments. I'm just kind of making this for fun. I was throwing a radio in a car, and I was like, hell, might as well record that shit, toss it up onto YouTube. But yeah, so with that being said, guys, appreciate your dedication to watching my dumbass do anything. And hope to see you in the next one.